today on TLC Live, as the clock ticks closer to 2024, we all want to know what it will be the predictions about the markets in the new year. And to give us the economic forecast, we have today Daniel Perez Liston, Assistant Professor of Finance of University of Houston, downtown. Hello, everybody, and welcome to TLC Live. I hope everybody had a great Christmas. We are around the corner to receive the 2024 with a lot of expectations, especially in the economy. Everything is expensive. We're paying more for gas. We're paying more for clothes. We're paying more for mortgage. We're paying more for rent. We pay more for everything. But what is the predictions on 2024? That's why I invite my dear friend Daniel Perez Liston, Assistant Professor of Finance of University of Houston, downtown. Daniel, I hope you had an amazing Christmas. Welcome to TLC.
Hi, Andrea. How are you? Thank you very much for inviting me to your show.
Well, no, thanks for your time as always. Well, I'm sure Christmas, everybody was like spending everything that we have, groceries and gifts. And I mean, we're seeing the malls always like packed, but people are still complaining. Everything is expensive at every day. We're trying to stretch the money. But what is the predictions on 2024? Not only knowing how's the economy today, but we're going to have presidential elections on 2024, and that also is going to impact the economy in the United States. So give us the forecast and what to expect on the 2024.
Yeah. So as you know, Andrea, and you just mentioned this right now. 2023, 2022, we had a very rough year in terms of inflation, and consumers were very hurt by very high levels of inflation. Inflation actually went all the way up to like 9.2%, I believe, in summer of 2022. So consumers were feeling the pain when it came to buying all sorts of products, buying food, buying cars, buying real estate, refrigerators, like all sorts of different types of products. So consumers have been feeling the pinch, for a long time. But thankfully, the actions that the Federal Reserve have taken, and some of the actions that the Biden administration has taken, have helped to reduce inflation, and inflation is now roughly about 3%. So I expect that inflation will continue to decrease for 2024, which is a good thing for consumers. However, prices, continue to be relatively high, compared to what they were before the pandemic started. So we do see prices continue to be high. We might see some deflation in some products. We might actually see, prices actually come down, what we know as or what we call deflation. Hopefully we'll see that in some products, but prices do continue to be high, and they might continue to be high in some products. But the good thing is that inflation, which is the rate of change of the price level of a product, is actually going to be lower compared to what it was in 2023 and 22 and 21. So that's a good thing. When it comes to economic growth, I think we're going to see slower economic growth compared to what we saw in 23 and 22 and 21. Which is part of the problem. Like we had this large amount of inflation because economic growth was so strong, and I know that consumers haven't felt this economic growth in a sense. People have complained that the economy isn't good, and people are complaining about that. But we really have had like strong economic growth over the last 2 or 3 years, like very strong economic growth, and this has led to the problems of inflation that we've seen over the last few years. And now we're actually going to see like lower economic growth, and that lower economic growth is actually going to be beneficial in terms of inflation. So we're actually going to transition into a more economy, which actually is going to be better for consumers and better for the economy as a whole. And we might actually see what people have been calling this, what they call like a soft landing, where we might not go into a recession, and we might end up having, like a normal inflation rate, and the economy won't go into a recession, which actually is a good thing.
What is your feedback of this statement? It said U.S. economist predicts 2024 will bring biggest crash of our lifetime.
Yeah, so that statement I think is rooted on the idea that there's some markets that seem to have like some pretty high prices, right? So if you look at the housing market right now, for example, housing prices are pretty high, right? Like home prices are pretty expensive compared to what they should be. So if you look at some of these markets, they're pretty expensive. They're unusually expensive. So some economists and some people, might predict that some of these markets might be in a bubble and that bubble might, burst. But maybe they're not exactly right. Maybe there isn't a bubble. Maybe these markets are just like stabilizing. So there are some fears out there that there are like some bubbles or some pockets of bubbles out there that might create like some instability in certain markets. So I think people and investors need to be careful for bubbles and problems in certain markets, and I think that's kind of true. Now, whether I think that the market is going to burst and we're going to have like a financial collapse in 2024, I don't think so. Not at all. Like there's no signs. I don't see any signs in the economy and financial markets or anywhere that show or detect that we're going to have like some kind of financial collapse or anything like that at all, like at all at this point.
What do you predict, or what is the expectations with the elections on the 2024? We know that for the Republican nominee, we have one of the candidates is Trump, very controversial as always, and then we have Joe Biden that haven't done, in my opinion, and in the opinion of millions of Americans, he haven't done a good job. And he's planning to be also the nominee for the Democratic Party. So you think that after the primaries, depend on who's going to be the candidate for each party, and then on the way to the general elections, we're going to have changes in the economy depends of that?
Yeah, so sometimes, I think, and I think we've mentioned this before in your show with Orlando, and, people sometimes overestimate the impact that a president has on the economy. So I think, regardless of who wins the presidential election, I think, they're not going to like significantly change the economy, but there is some impact, right? I mean, of course, if President Trump is the winner of the election in November 2024, that's going to have some impact on the economy for sure. And then, of course, if Joe Biden wins the election, that'll have like some impact. But the impact that it'll have over the economy, I think sometimes people in general tend to exaggerate that impact. I think other factors like the Federal Reserve intervening and changing interest rates, adjusting the money supply and those kinds of things. I think those things have like a greater impact on the economy than who actually wins the election, even though those things are a little bit more boring and people don't like to talk about those things because they're just like a little bit more boring. So, um, you know, but of course, for sure, whoever wins the election, whoever the nominee is for the party, and then whoever goes on and wins the election in November 2024, that'll have, some impact on the economy because, for example, Trump has mentioned something about, passing another round of tax cuts, right? So if he does win the election and he does pass some tax cuts, that'll have some impact on the economy, right? So those are the kinds of things that would have an impact. But of course, if Joe Biden wins the election and he does, implement like another type of kind of like another type of stimulus, kind of like the Infrastructure Act that he passed, a couple of years ago, that would have some impact on the economy as well. So I guess it just depends, but I think, in general, I think folks tend to like overestimate the impact of the economy or of the president on the economy. And I think it's more the Federal Reserve and other factors that play a role on the economy. Um, go ahead.
Daniel, we last week on the show we were talking, and also not only on the show but all over the news, we were talking about the border crisis and a new bill that it was just signed by Governor Abbott, SB 4 and SB 3. Um, of course, we're having now a massive and million in non-present illegal immigrants crossing the border. How do you think this it will impact the economy on 2024? It will be a positive or negative impact, or it won't matter?
Yeah, so like generally speaking, and this I don't want to get too much into like a political conversation over this, but we are seeing like a large influx of undocumented workers into the country for sure. And I believe in 2000 we had a very large wave of undocumented workers. In 1986 we also had a large wave of undocumented workers. So we've had these things happen before, and social scientists don't know exactly why these things happen. Push back the country conditions, where they're coming from. Like if they're coming from Honduras or El Salvador, like the conditions in that country deteriorate, and that kind of pushes those people to come over here. Or maybe the conditions in our country attract, those people. Like if we're doing very good, that attracts these people to come over here because we're doing so good. So now, just like from a purely like economic perspective, just like purely economics, from a purely economic perspective, labor is one of the inputs for economic growth. So, of course, if we have more people that are working here, then that kind of benefits the economy, right? So just labor is one of the inputs for economic growth.
Absolutely. So
You know,
let's talk about
and of
just
course
in
we
general the families, the just the community in general. What can we do to protect ourselves for the fluctuation in the economy, for the inflation that we're seeing? What can we do in our house?
Yeah. So again, so this year we're going to have a better situation in terms of inflation, which is good news, right? Uh, but there's there's certain products that you might want to avoid purchasing or financing, right? So if interest rates right now are high, right, which they are relatively high compared to what they were before the pandemic, then you might want to avoid financing certain things, right? So things that are expensive, right, like high price goods like cars, refrigerators, washing machines, like those certain things you might want to try and avoid buying right now because financing is expensive, and maybe defer purchasing them until later on, because you don't want to finance to pay interest rates on that. But sometimes you just have to do it, and that's the unfortunate thing. Like you have to buy a car if your car breaks down and you can't fix it anymore. Or if your washing machine breaks down, you have to buy it and you might have to finance it. Or also look for the best deals that have certain offers on zero APR. Like you might find that kind of stuff right now still for certain cars if possible. But just in general, like from a consumer perspective, I think consumers in general need to do like a monthly budgeting, right? And look at their income and look at their expenses. I think that's just like general advice that I think is very important that people don't follow in their day to day activities. So just kind of look at like monthly budgeting, and then again, like I said, trying to avoid buying like big ticket items right now if you can, and especially financing these kinds of things. If you can buy them cash, buy them. Try and avoid financing because financing is very expensive right now.
So pretty much save money, trying to buy everything
Yeah.
cash and no finance, and sit and put everything on budget. And because sometimes we don't even know how much we're spending, and I'm one of those. I have my automatic payments.
Yeah.
Um, we tend these days with a lot of streaming platforms and a lot of subscription things that we don't even know what we're paying, and it's just like monthly. It's taking the money monthly out of our credit cards or debit cards. So I think like get the bank statement and really sit and write it down how much I'm spending in groceries, in subscriptions, what I need to cancel that I don't even use. Um, I think that's very important. That should be one of the 2024 goals for sure.
I think so, Andra. Just like sit down and do like monthly budgeting is very, very important. And we all avoid it because we don't want to see what we're spending on, like we don't want to see that we spent, $500 on restaurants, last week, or that we spent, $500 on clothes and stuff like that. So it's painful to see how much, money we spent on certain things that, maybe are not necessary, right? And now with food being so expensive and certain products being so expensive, it's even more painful. So just doing that activity, right, I think would be very useful for most homes. And there's a lot of software now that can help you do that activity, right? You can download apps to your phone that can help you track all your expenses, or you can download software to your computer that can help you download those expenses. You can just do like a Google search for these software applications that I'm talking about.
I think that's gonna help a lot because we need to separate what we need from what we want, and that's very important.
Yeah.
We're spending, and sometimes we say, oh, it's just $20 here, it's just 15 here, it's 30 here, and it sounds like it's nothing. But if you start adding it up and then put it together during the whole year, it's a lot of money.
It is a
So
lot of money. It is a lot of
yeah,
money, and one of the things that we have, that in economics we call it the marginal propensity to consume, and basically whenever you get a raise, like let's say you get $1,000 raise, out of that $1,000 raise, how much of that money are you going to spend, or how much are you going to save? And most people end up spending that $1,000. They don't save that money, right? So just setting a target of saving, 10% of that money or 20% of that money of that extra raise that you got, I think is important. But most people don't do that. They just if they get $1,000 raise, then they spend $1,000. If they get a ten
yeah,
thousand dollar
absolutely.
raise, they spend $10,000.
And you say something very important that these days with the apps, the technology allowed you to budgeting yourself easier, but also another tip that I would say, and you probably back me up on that. It's the technology also these days with the apps. It's a lot of apps that you can save automatic. So as much as we're spending automatic in many platforms that they taking our money out of the bank right away, $15, I don't know how much is Netflix and something like that, that we're doing that. I have two different apps. One is Acorns and another one is Albert, that it forced me to save money. And I don't feel it because they take like weekly $100 from one account, and the other app it taking $50 from one account. So at the end of the year, when I check it out, it's like, oh, I have $5,000 or $4,000, and I can use that on vacation, and instead of using the credit cards for that. So that's another very good way to save money, because if somebody tell me you do it yourself, just take $100 and put it in the saving account, I will never do it. So I train myself to just download those apps, and it's automatic. I don't even see it. So I think that's another good tip that people can use
It's
to save money.
I I agree. I agree. You need to separate that money because there's something in what we call behavioral finance where you have like these mental accounts, and you want to like separate the money in your mental account and in an actual physical account, and separate that money, because once you separate that money in your mind and you separate that money physically, then you forget about it. You don't touch that money. You don't use it anymore. So this notion of like mental accounting, it actually works, because for you, when that app takes that money away from you, um, you just discard it. You don't think about it anymore. It's automatic. It's separate in your mind. It's not part of the money that you're gonna use for spending on restaurants, on going to the movies and stuff like that. So we call that mental accounting, and I think it's very, very important. So yeah, those kinds of applications are also like very important. But yeah, anything that works for you. Every individual is different. Some people are old school. They'll put money under their mattress and that works for them. And some people are more. But anything that works for you would make sure you do. But I think what's also important is consistency and discipline. Those two
Yeah.
things combined will make a difference.
Financial discipline is not easy. Okay, well, Danielle, give us a wrap. What to expect and what to do.
Yeah. So what I think, just for 2024, I think we're going to see a much more economy here in Houston, better inflation, a much lower inflation rate, but also lower economic growth, and just a much more stable economy. So in that sense, we're going to be better, but we're going to have like lower economic growth. Now, in terms of what you were mentioning, in terms of the political situation, we are going to have a very interesting, political year, because we're having that election in November 2024. So that's going to be a very interesting year. And as far as the immigration situation that you mentioned, we are having a very difficult situation on the border that's like unprecedented. And I think Democrats and Republicans need to get together to work something out, because we definitely need to have like an orderly immigration process for sure.
Absolutely. Well, Danielle, thank you so much for always make yourself available to TLC live. And I wish you a very, very happy 2024 to you, your wife, and your family.
Thank you. Likewise, Andrea. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you so much. And Happy New Year to everybody. Thank you so much for this amazing 2023 with the ups and downs, but we're here, we are alive, and vamos a echarle muchas ganas al 2024. Gracias, gracias por acompañarnos, por haber sido parte de Texas Latino Conservatives, por haber sido parte de nuestra misión, de nuestro proyecto, de nuestra visión, por ser parte de nuestra familia, for always watching us, supporting us, being with us. I wish you a wonderful, wonderful 2024. A lot of hugs, kisses, kiss your family, hug your family, be with the ones that you love, because that's what is the holidays about. Just in the middle of the war in the world, in the middle of the crisis that we're facing, in the middle of the economy and the immigration disasters that we're suffering, and the middle of everything, the bad that we're seeing in the world, the beauty is in our home, our family, our kids, our relatives, our parents. So hug them, kiss them while you have them, and happy 2024. Happy New Year. And I'll see you guys next year in TLC Live as every Wednesday. Nos vemos el próximo miércoles and visit our website texaslatinoconservatives.com.